Okay, so while we're waiting, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Abiodun Oke. I'm a supply chain management professional and also experience in project management. I'm the founder of Serial Projects and the Supply Chain Industry Network, where we provide support to foreign professionals who are looking to integrate successfully here in Canada. Ability to have them also, break into their industry. So we have a number of sessions that we hold here every Saturday. First Saturday we welcome newcomers. The second Saturday we do a job search roadmap because of course we know all newcomers are looking to get into a role, the desired role here in Canada. And after that, the third Saturday we do mock interviews actually today. And then the first Saturday we will do a new info session, helping with some type of industry information, or we do some type of informational session about career and all that type of stuff to help them in their professional development. So I have experienced industry professionals here to support our uh, construction project managers and facility managers in Canada. We have James Ashai. James will later introduce himself, as well as Ibrahim. And we have Alabayo, two bios actually. So one is Alabayo Elushaki, and the other bio is Adeloju. I think he's here already. Maybe I just had to bring him in. I see somebody raise their hands. Okay, so yeah, that's it. And I think he has Babs. So if you can change to full name, that will be helpful. So we know the person that we're relating with. So we also have guys in the participants who are just observing and learning, hopefully. What I would say here is that we would like to have a focus session where the panelists are going to be providing feedback as the candidates answer questions. However, for those who are just observing, if you have questions, please, just put your question in this question and answer box, and then we'll attend to them later, like 30 minutes before the end of the session. We will take those questions. But for now, it's going to be a focus session, just like we have our regular interviews. And over to you, James. Introduce yourself, then Ibrahim, Olabayo, and then I think the other bio, Adeloju, will also introduce himself. I have another bio. We have been bombarded by
So we
bios
have
today.
three bios. D,
So
D, D.
the other bio is supporting us. He's not really involved in the interview, and would have even been complicated because we have another interview panelist who is also bio. So, anyways, that adds to the fun for today. So, over to you, James.
Okay, good. Abiodun, thanks so much. And good morning, everybody, or whatever your weather is there or your time. Uh, I wish you enjoy the best of time. My name is James Olashin Ashai. I'm a project manager. I'm also a civil engineer by profession. Uh, I've been around for a couple of time. Came into Canada in 2016, even though it was a lot rough. But here we are, we thank God today, we are still pushing to ensure that we get to our desired promised land. I've worked in a couple of places in Canada here, principally in Winnipeg with construction-based general contractors, family business. Some of them are infrastructural builders, like optic fiber laying, and also briefly with facility management firms. But as at now, my bus stop is with Manitoba government. I work as a structural engineer with Manitoba government. I manage projects. I manage contractors. Manage consultants. From A to Z of projects. And basically, I'm responsible for bridges and culverts. So where you see roads moving over water, over other obstructions, there must be a bridging. an element to cross the road, and that's either bridge or culvert or some other structures like dikes. So I'm principally involved in that, and it's been a very roller coaster experience the last 2 years. I'm still learning. I'm also willing to offer the little I've gathered, and so that all of us we can get to our destinations. I am in your shoes. I've been there, and I know as an immigrant, you know what it could be. I mean, subscribe for the interviewees. So, and that's all I will say for now about myself. And maybe as we go on, we'll get to know more about ourselves. Thank you.
Thanks, James. Over to you, Ibrahim.
Right, thanks, Abiodun. Ibrahim Oladakbo. Yeah, I have a background in cost management, procurement management, and project management. Since I've been in Canada, I've worked with a contractor managing wastewater projects, and that gave me the background, with regards to how projects are managed in Canada, from the whole context of estimating project controls to actually boots on the ground. And since then I moved on to the estimating team. We also got experience on how you bid for jobs, how you at the highest level understand what you need to bid for and decisions you have to take on that level. Currently, I work with the government of Alberta, and that gives me experience with regards to public sector and how projects are managed and procured. I work as a cost manager, so we would deal with the budget to ensure that there's enough funds, and that cuts across educational projects, so schools, university and colleges, and then healthcare projects, mental health, as well as other government facilities. For me, I think being able to reflect on my background in Nigeria, 15 years before coming here, I'm able to see how it's easy to try and switch from what we've learned from back home and try and use it here. The one important thing is the transferable skills that we have and how to explain that Canadian experience is not the issue, that you have the experience. So that's something I think I learned early on, when I came here, and I think I was able to use that to good effect. So yeah, I'm always happy to support our own, on this journey. This is my first session, and I think I'm glad that I'm able to spend some time to contribute to this.
Awesome. Thanks to have you here, Ibrahim. So we have Olabayo Olusegun will go first, and then Bayo Adeloju will go next in that order. Then the session can start officially. Go ahead, Olabayo.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olabayo Olusegun. I'm a facility manager by profession, coupled with little of project management. I came into Canada in 2022, January, but I've been in and out of Canada until I finally settled down in December 2023. So I acquired all my professional experience as been from in Nigeria because I just came into Canada. I have over 10 years experience in managing facilities and facility-related project management. Like I've said, all my professional experience have been in Nigeria. I'm looking forward to working with professionals on how to be able to guide me and be able to enlighten me in translating all the acquired experience in Nigeria to in Canada. Thank you.
Awesome. Go ahead, Babs. You're muted.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olabayo Adeloju. I have worked in the project management sphere for over 10 years. I came into Canada last year, and I've been looking for something around project management. I have a degree in agri-economics and a master's in project management. I've been managing projects since the first day I got a job after school. And I have a PMP and a Scrum Master. Thank you very much.
I think that is it. Yeah, we can start now. So what I would say, James, is you and Ibrahim can just take turns, and like if you provide feedback after your question, the other panelists can also support, with their response as well if you wish. So that's up to you guys. So we can start now.
Okay, so do we ask them interchangeably? Is that the intention?
Yeah, in turns, yeah.
So do you want to start, James? Or yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So maybe I'll first go. I think Olabayo is Olushake is facility manager, right?
Oh yeah.
And can we take Babs as a project manager because he has project management experience? Yeah. So my first question to the facility management candidates, if you are to describe, your experience in managing facility operations, how do you, ensure smooth day-to-day running? Say it by that, giving a specific example.
Okay, thank you very much. As a facility manager, my first point of contact is to ensure that I understand the facility I'm to manage. What are the components in the facility by carrying out a facility audit, so I can be familiar with the facility itself. Two, then after gathering all this necessary information, I'm to provide a platform to ensure that the facility is running for the purpose at which it is designed for, such as ensure that there is uninterrupted power electricity, and there is in terms of facility, there are two key things in facility management for a facility. Number one is power. Number two, likely is water supplying to the building. If you have these two things in your facility will be running smoothly, and other things also such as security, protection of life and property. So I just have to have a plan. By this, I can be able to come up with a PPM, plan preventive maintenance schedule, to be able to ensure that I'm on top of all the components in the facility to know which one is due for services, instead of to be able to eradicate or reduce breakdown time in the facility. Thank you.
Mr. Olabayo, thank you so much. Actually, you quickly told us, your broad view about facility management, but don't forget that you need to take note of the way the question is framed so that your response will be in line with that question. I remember I said clearly that give a typical example, because every question you want to answer, especially in Canada, remember also that you are new and say they don't even know your past experience. They may not have gone through your resume clearly to know exactly what you have, but this is the opportunity. When you are answering any question, always back it up with example. Example where you did this, where you do that, and that will quickly bring your point home faster, and that sync. And when you are talking about facility, talk about what's the possible cost of that facility, Is it a big one? Even if it's not a big one, but just have a sizable, because that also tells that you said you find out about, you do audit about the facility. When you do audit of the facility, you look at the historical background of the facility, because most times these are facilities that you are committed to for a long time. Unlike a project manager who is just going to start a project, finish it, move on to another one. But you want to be on that facility. Now maybe from the example from your explanation, you are looking at building. Sometimes facilities can be equipment, on sites or on project sites or in different environment, industrial environment. So fine, but your experience matter where you have experience. So give example in that area. Even if you are talking about building, tell us about the scope of the project, who owns it, things like that, and give typical example. That will bring your discussion home faster. Okay.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think James made a very good point. I think, and I'm sure you had the information prior that you should use the STAR approach to answer interview questions. It's where to be very good to use that approach. describe the situation, giving the example, describe the situation, then the task you had, the actions you took, and then the results.
Exactly.
And I think that's where the perfect example of using that will come into play. Right, I think I can ask Babs a question here. Babs, can you confirm, are you looking into construction project management or IT project management?
Construction project management.
Perfect. Okay, just to be sure that the questions will be thrown at you. It will be waiting for you.
Yeah,
okay.
very relevant to you.
Yes. All right. So my question to you is this: first one, how do you approach planning and scheduling a construction project? So can you give an example of a project where you successfully managed a timeline?
Thank you very much. As a construction project manager, I would approach planning and scheduling based on the scope of the project. I would look at the scope of the project and see how long it would take us based on what the engineers are saying. I would see how long it will take us to finish the project. The plan will be based on the timeline that is given. For example, one of the projects I did recently was the construction of water for Chevron, a water facility for the people of Ojumole in Ondo State. Now, that project was supposed to take us 6 months. That was the initial, but we ended up spending 11 months because there was surge, the ocean surge affected the project. However, while we were doing the project, the engineers actually told us we could go 3 months above the timeline. So we were able to put up the timeline as 9 months, but we ended up doing 11 months, 2 months above the planned time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the answer. It's very good, good attempt. But I think you can also do better. You had a very good example with regards to how you described it. One thing you could do is, if you look at, say, STAR situation, you describe the situation, the project, task. You started with the task, which is that you talk to the engineers to come up with the idea, right? But now that's where you're now going to the action. What did you do? Not what, run a blanket statement. That's where you spend the bulk of your time. What did you do to manage the situation? And I think you can look at the technical portion of what you can do to explain to show that, oh, I can actually be a project manager, but I actually did it. Yes, you bring the project team and subject matter experts to identify what is required on the job, technical requirements, identify timelines, then working on the schedule, identifying dependencies, on the schedule and the different activities that need to take place, right? Activities that happen before and after, then link them all together, then establish a critical path for the project to identify that these are the most important things that you have to do. So you have to bring some of those technical bits into describing what you have done. So they know, oh, this person knows, because when you tell anyone critical path, oh, this person knows project management, that's some of the keywords we can use to let them know that, oh, this person is in the field, or they know what we're doing, right? So once you describe that, you now say, based on that, you identify the critical path, and then you run the project. The results, where you now say, oh, from the results, you identify that due to ocean surge or unforeseen circumstances, and that's a good word, unforeseen circumstances. So that's also a keyword to use, right? In this case, ocean surge, the project was delayed. However, you had float, which is you have 3 months of float, which was identified when you developed the schedule, and you're able to use some of those floats on the job, meaning that the 6 months could have been 9 months, but they now had 2 months of delay. But you cannot explain that, yeah, this was not an issue because maybe the clients were still okay with it, or that, it wasn't your fault, but still it was okay, because when you count it, 6 plus 3 is 9, but you guys did it in 11. That means you guys failed. That's what it means, that you failed on this project because you did it 2 months later. So if you have to justify why that 2 months was not a problem, for your clients. So I'm just making let you know that the example you give, even though the answer is not right, they're looking at what did you do, and what did the result turn out to be. You can use a field project. It doesn't mean they are marking you based on the field project, but the fact that you know what you did and there's a reason why what happened, you know, was that result, and there's justification for it. But yeah, very good attempts. I'll say that.
Thank you.
Okay, I would just want to add that project planning and scheduling, you know, that's a very broad statement when it comes to project management. But you discover that in the setting, the company where you are working, you know, there may not be templates. There may not be an existing document, and there may be, you know, like you said, if you work with somebody like Share, you have template already. So it's important to understand, you know, what are the documents you have, you know, what are the tools you have. And in the course of planning, some of the qualities of a project manager comes into play. You know, I mean, if they ask you what's your experience about approach to planning, you must begin to emphasize the qualities that you put into play. When we say planning, that means it involves, because what does project manager does? Why are you driven from the engineer? You bring people together, you manage them, and you manage the project. We cannot get a successful project without people. So one of the first things that will be put to test is your skill to be able to bring people together, collaborative skill. So when we're talking about project planning and scheduling, you want to say, okay, yeah, planning takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time for us to plan for a project, but in the course of that planning, your skills also come into play. Like you are citing an example, this is a very good example. And I know you may not be able to exhaust everything in one good question, but bear in mind, anytime you are coming up with question, look at, like Ibrahim told you, what's your role, you know, because it's easy to say we did it, but a project manager, and then many times you not even tell us where you have challenges, because you don't, but there is a way you can turn your challenges to, you know, a plus for you, how you handle it, what did you do, you know, because in the course of planning, you need to interact with stakeholders. You need to get people together. Yeah, so you are not expected to know everything. So it's in your consultation, you know, meet different departments. I mean, if you work in Chevron, you know, your role is just going to be your project manager, but you need to deal with a lot of departments. Okay. So just put that as a plus, you know, in your mind.
Thank you.
I think, yeah. So I will also ask maybe the following question, the follow-up question I will ask will be, what are the qualities of a project manager? And that still goes to Babs, because I don't want us to be like I'm asking facility question, or you know. So Babs, what are the qualities of a project manager in a construction setting? And which of those qualities have you, you know, maybe just cite an example of some of those qualities and give example, maybe one example of how you interplay those the quality during a particular project.
So thank you very much for the question. One of the biggest quality of a project manager is his ability to engage the stakeholders, ability to understand the stakeholders, and be able to manage the stakeholders effectively. Because if you, as a project manager, you are able to connect everybody on the team and make sure that the best of them comes out. The best of each person is exhibited on the projects, from the first person to the last person, from the bricklayer to the engineer to everybody that is important, even to the people, to stakeholders that are not doesn't have impact on the project. You make sure that everybody is carried along. And one of the greatest strengths I have is risk management. I'm able to look at a project, look at the scope of a project, and I'm able to say, this project would have so and so risk. And I will give you an example. Well, when we were working on a police station in Banki, we had to cross the border between Nigeria and Cameroon to buy resources. One of the key things I looked at was security. It wasn't part of the project, but I looked at it and said, this is going to affect the delivery of this project. So I was able to come up with plans that we added and mitigated against those risks. So risk management is also a big factor when it comes to projects. So we were able to mitigate against that on that particular project. We were able to mitigate against it because I came up with a security plan that we put in place, and then we got a risk person to manage the risk aspect of that project. We were able to deliver the project on time. We were able to deliver it within budget, and we got a thumbs up for doing a good work on that project.
Okay. Thank you, Babs. First, and maybe the same thing to Labai. I want you to be relaxed. You know, this is a mock interview, right? Because we too have been in these shoes. It's a mock interview. Relax, okay? Relax and just
Okay.
get it right. You have that freedom to think about the question before you answer. You have grace of using 2-3 minutes. Say, yeah, if I get you right, this is what you're asking, okay? So that way, if you don't get it, the question asker will just reframe his question and repeat himself, okay? I asked about the qualities of a project manager, okay? But I want to assure you that all you told me is about the responsibilities. You understand? How you get stakeholder, how you get them, what are the qualities you will have, you know, that will make them, maybe when you're trying to get them listening to you. Okay.
Okay.
So for the sake of this, you know, it's a knowledge sharing, and we are learning. If we talk about qualities of a project manager, I expect that when we are coming for interview like this, you will have, if you say you have PMP, you will have gone through your PMP sheet. In fact, me too, it's not like I have any joker, okay? Some of this I'm asking you are things like, oh, what will I ask these guys? Is it something I use every day? No. But what are the things that you must know? Because when you get into a system, you go into any company, you discover that it's not really all these things that come into play on a daily basis, right? Even for a long time, months, you may not even hear about, when you talk about project shatter, some companies may not even, you know, maybe an high level team where you are working, you don't even get near it, and you're still a project manager. Depends on the kind of system that's running in that corporation or organization, okay? So, but when we say qualities of a project manager, yeah, Labai, I hope you are also hearing me. I mean,
Yes.
these are, you know, because this is a mock interview, we can pick some ideas and we'll go and leverage it on a real interview. So what are the qualities of a project manager? You must be a servant leader. You understand? You just, those things are adjectival statement like that. So you can state them like, you must be a servant leader. You must be proactive. Like that instinct you got now that, oh, there's no security measure in this project. You know, even though you're already in the project, but it's part of your being your proactiveness. At least you took the action before it became an issue. Okay, so you must be a proactive. See, you are displaying that quality, but you have to mention it. You have to be aware of it. You are proactive. You are a servant leader. You are a listening leader. You are a leader that can, you know, that can receive feedback. If you are saying, okay, are you a good communicator? You must be a good communicator. Communicator does not mean that you will be fluent in English alone or you speak Canadian language. No, even Canadians have learned to know that we have strangers in our midst. We are immigrants who we need to understand their accent issue. So that is not even becoming an issue any longer, especially when you work with a corporate organization. If you work with private companies, family business, yeah, that can be an issue. If you got a very serious issue, because I've been there too. And you work with a family business, they are always, you know, on their toes. They want to meet deadlines. So they don't have that patience to allow you. Okay. But if you work with government, like myself and Ibrahim, we're working with government now. Oh boy, the government, part of the architecture is that they understand that there are strangers in our midst. But I tell you, before you get to government, so oftentimes you will find yourself going through this family business, one-man business, and there you need to see that it's important, to take care of your asset. But beyond that, qualities of a project manager, I say communication, good communication skill, being able to speak very well, yeah, but you must be able to also manage the expectations. When you are relating with people as a project manager, there are a lot of people in your team, okay? So be able to manage them. What is the expectation? So that's when the issue of what if scenario comes in. What if scenario comes like, this guy that I need is a stakeholder. What if he doesn't cooperate with me? So you must map out strategies how to take care of that, okay? So when we talk about good communication, you are easily accepting feedbacks graciously, because if they see you as somebody who doesn't give time listening to others, then it will be very difficult to accept feedbacks. And I tell you, we might have swallowed it in Nigeria, but here it's a very key, important information. No matter how good you are, skill, energy, or your academic background, an employer, a hiring manager, I want to know whether you're going to fit into that system. And one of the key fitting is that, are you able to, listen to others? Are you able to accommodate others? So when we talk about project managers' qualities, we are looking at being a servant leader. You are selfless. As many times, many of us are not selfless. Or you are respectful, okay? So these things, we need to take care of them. Maybe they've told us in our private faith-based environment, but they are also important in our job areas, okay? So you are optimistic and positive. If there's any challenge, your rapport, your outward display will tell your team member either there's a way or not. Even the challenge is there, you take it up as being positive. Being positive. You must show that you're a goal getter. You must be collaborative, and like I said, you must be a good communicator. You must, not that you accept feedback alone, you must also be able to give feedback, constructive feedback. There's tendency for you when you are managing people will not do the right thing. Your team member will not do the exact what is expected. But if you are not careful, you will rock the boat. And the job they are doing, you can't do it. So we must find a means of getting our feedback across to them in a very, welcoming way. So there are a lot of things that you may take care about that, but at least that's that. When you talk about responsibility, try to know the difference. You can note that down. Know the difference between responsibility of a project manager and the qualities of a project manager.
I agree with you, James. Very good point that you have made there. And I think it's very useful for everyone to understand the context of the questions. I think one important thing you said is pausing before you answer questions. I learned that as well. I think it was last year, on an interview where, the feedback they told me was that, I spoke to the HR, and we discussed it. And I think the key thing was that pause, if you ask a question, don't rush to answer it. Take 2 minutes if you have to think through the question and even ask them, to understand the context of what they're asking you. That'll give you time to understand it and you can now respond, And I think people will appreciate that you're actually probing the question to understand it better. That also shows that you are not jumping into conclusions. You're taking your time and you have analytical thinking approach, to how you are dealing with things. Very, very important. People don't say, but they will not mark you for taking time to think through. They don't give you lower marks for thinking through the question before you answer it. Very, very important.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think I can ask a question on conflict resolution. I see it's on the project management side, but I think it's also good for everyone in facilities management as well. Yeah. So maybe I can throw this to Olabayo. Yeah. So how do you approach and resolve conflicts? The simple,
thank you.
But speak to a lot of things you can answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. When we are talking in terms of conflict resolution, number one, I must first get to the root of the conflict. what is the root, what is the cause of the conflict. When we are talking into project or facility management, there might be conflict, or maybe two teams are not agreeing on a particular task. So I must first investigate what is the root and call the both parties together to be able to see that, okay, we are working on the same goal. So we don't need to come by bringing the two teams together, hear the other side stories on, okay, and then provide a way forward to be able to make sure that the task is being done and the two parties are able to work together as a unit, as one. Two, and in the area that I'm not be able to resolve the conflict, then I can be able to escalate to the higher authority. But as a project or facility manager, when there's a conflict on the project we are handling, the first thing is that to call the two parties together, hear their other side of the story, then provide a solution that will be able to work for the two parties, and they will be able to agree. In the case that there is no agreement between the two parties, then I can escalate to the higher authority. Thank you.
Before I respond, I'll also ask Babs to take make an attempt on this. How would you approach and resolve conflicts that may arise maybe on the project?
Thank you very much. So when a conflict arises, when there is a conflict in the project environment, the first thing is that I would identify the root cause of the conflict, because it may not be a conflict at the end of the day. So identifying the root cause is very important. Once I identify the root cause, I will try and see how we can reach an amicable resolution between the two parties, if there are two parties, or more, if there are more. Find a conflict resolution method that would work in this instance. So it can be for them to be able to collaborate on a project. It can be for them not to work together. It can be for them to work independently, and then we still achieve the same result if it is possible. So we find a way to resolve the conflict without blaming anybody. In actual fact, although there are instances where you also apportion blame, if the company agrees that you should punish people or penalize people that go out of line, we can. But most importantly is we want to achieve a result. We want to deliver on the project. And the best possible way of resolving the conflict is what we shall focus on. So we identify the problem, we try to resolve the problem by using the best approach available. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good attempts to both of you. But I think what I'll say is you need to do more in using the STAR approach to answer questions. One thing I'll really advise is this. There are a lot of model questions out there for job interviews. Like what I did when I came, and I think that was one thing I learned when I went for the bridging program with CCIS, Catholic Immigration Society. So they had these model questions. I didn't like it, but I forced myself to do it. And what they said is that go and take time to answer all these questions, identify your star for all these questions. I think my book is probably from somewhere. I know I kept it somewhere. And so now what it helps you is it helps you reflect on your career to date, identify examples of what you can use for conflict resolution, for dealing with difficult people, for managing schedule issues, etc. Everything is required for the job you're trying to go for. You can spend a week, do that, refine it. You don't even have to cram it, but just have the examples in your brain so that it's easy for you. Anyone asks a question, you have an idea of what to use to answer it. I think that's where the real X factor will be when they're preparing for interviews. Now, for conflict resolution, if you look at a construction project, for example, if you're working with a contractor, you will always have conflicts. If you're working with government, you'll always have conflicts, and it can come in different ways. There are conflict with your colleagues, or conflict with system contractors, conflict with the contractor, or with the engineers, etc. Now, you guys did some very good examples. I think structure, which is, yes, you try to get the, identify the issue, correct? You get hear from everyone to understand what has happened, correct? And then you try to find mechanisms to resolve it. Example of, getting them to work differently, independently, etc. Yes, then, Oluba, you said, yes, if you can't resolve it and you escalate it, perfect. The only thing that you guys did not do is you did not provide actual examples of how you've actually managed the conflicts. Because if you don't do that, they'll just say, oh, yes, you told us what you would do, but you didn't give us examples of how you've actually done it. If I want you to be a manager, I want to see where you've actually done this before. And I think that was, okay, this person actually has done it before, he has managed that pressure before, then he will do it. If not, you're not a project manager, you're likely a project coordinator because you've not really handled it before. And I want to see you before you can I give responsibility to actually handle it. So use the STAR approach. And I think a good example would be, say, if you're working as a construction project manager for a contractor, you'll always have conflict with your superintendents because they are the ones with boots on the ground, managing the jobs. And there will always be an issue of, oh, how are we going to resolve this? It could be issue of personality clash between the superintendent and you, or amongst two different superintendents. How do you resolve the conflicts? They are both experienced, they are both qualified, but they are not working together as a team. So how do you manage that process? And it's not a HR issue, But of course, you get them to work together, which is correct, but you have to show the example of how you've done it before. So please look for experiences you have and try to model that into an answer using the STAR approach.
Thank you, Ibrahim. So I think it's great that you put an emphasis on that, because really a successful interview needs to follow that format. If you are going to be successful at an interview, you really have to follow that format. And the reason why I also want to emphasize this is that, remember, James mentioned earlier that they don't know your experience. So even if these questions sound like a theoretical question, try to help them bring home, how you have actually performed in this particular circumstance. Like when Bayo was answering that question, I thought it started out well, but then I was expecting, okay, mention an example, but it didn't, go into that example aspect, which is really where you drive home the fact that you have what it takes to handle conflict. So they are not asking you that question at an intellectual level only. They're asking you so that you can tell them what you have actually done in your past experiences, because that's the value you are bringing to this employer. So tell us the value you've added to your previous employer using examples, as as a way to further buttress the fact that you have what it takes to deliver on that job. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, maybe if I would just say a word on that, conflict resolution style. I mean, all that you guys said, they are fine and fantastic. And I believe you're also taking time to take note from what Ibrahim and Abiodun said. Yeah, but one aspect I also want you to look into is that, we're expected to be a continuous learning person. So for this kind of interview, maybe for your larger interview, I mean, if you're a project manager, one of the skills that you must have is how to resolve conflicts. Okay, so you do yourself good, and in the world we have now, in fact, when I was in Nigeria, I mean, I never had that, I never knew that privilege is there. If you go to Google will bring out all the, Ibrahim talked about models. We have, like I said, conflict resolution styles. Is it competitive style? Is it collaborative style? About 5 of them or more than that. You can dwell extensively on that. by a continuous learning process. If I'm preparing for interview, like facility management, I've not done much of facility here, but I remember when I was looking for a job, I was just doing all kinds. And any interview I have, I'm going to get myself materials on Google or anywhere about that topic. So when we talk about qualities and all the responsibilities of a project manager or a facility manager, you will resolve conflict. You know that when you have teams, there's stages in team management too. You have to do norming, forming, and all those things. It's gradual, and in the course of doing that, there will be conflicts, either between you and your team member or between you and the client representative and all that. So it's a very key tool that we must possess as project manager: conflict resolution management of skills. Okay, thank you. So maybe we'll ask another question.
Yep.
Do I go for that again, Abby? Okay.
Yes, you can. Yep.
Yeah. When we talk about, I think this is for construction project management, and it's also facility management is useful. When you talk about sustainable construction, because that's one thing that's also very interesting here, in this kind of environment. If you get to somebody, like somebody mentioned about building, if you go to some buildings, you see some new, innovative ideas, that are more even explained well in green building, associations, where you, especially schools, where you combination of resources, to reduce injury to the community or to the environment friendly applications. So when we talk about sustainability in project in construction, so how do you incorporate sustainability into your project? What strategy do you use to minimize environmental impact? So for a facility manager, yes, there's an aspect, and for a construction project manager, there's an aspect of sustainability construction. Or just tell us, what you know about sustainability in construction project management or in facility management.
Can you please rephrase that question? The last part.
Good. So, I was talking about sustainability generally, and I just want to make sure that facility manager and the construction project manager, you have your take at that. And I'm saying that, how do you incorporate sustainability into your projects?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And to emphasize, provide an example.
If you need to wait 1 minute, please.
Do.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah, so let me just let you guys know that another bio has joined us. So Adebayo Abdul from Edmonton as well. He's also an experienced project manager, facility manager. And he will also be joining on the panelist to ask questions. Go ahead, Babs, if you're ready.
Okay. So sustainability in this context in construction is basically how to use products that are eco-friendly, use products that are energy efficiency, how to manage the whole process by making sure that what you are delivering, you are getting more for less. And I will cite example. We worked on a prefabricated police station and school in Abuja and Calabar. Now, what that did was that we were able to use prefabricated structures. We didn't destroy any parts of because the scope of the work involves us not touching the green, the trees, the way everything is. We were asked not to bring them down because normally you bring down the entire place, clear it and level it up. But the scope of the project, like I said, permitted us not to bring down those structures. So that's number one. Number two, using prefabricated structure, we were able to reduce what would have contributed to damaging the environment. We were able to reduce that. So we built the school using these materials. We built the school without cutting down trees. We built the police station within, excuse me. We used renewable energy, so to speak. We used renewable energy, and we were able, the material selection too for the construction process are all environmental friendly building materials that we use. So without destroying the wood, we were able to deliver the project within time and budget.
Okay. Olabayo, you want to go on for that too?
Okay, thank you very much. When we are talking of sustainability in facilities management, we're simply talking of how we are going to reduce or minimize our physical facility, how it's going to minimize its harmfulness to the society. For example, like Lagos, Nigeria, where I work with Crohn's LCS, because of lack of power, we use majorly the generator to power the facilities, and we know while using generator, it assumes flames that is harmful to the society. So with this scenario, I was able to convince and come up with a proposal to the management that one, from going to green energy, we are able to save some cost, though the initial cost of the capital project is there, but the long run, the matter of 5 years, we're able to save the money we are using to run on the generator of buying diesel and enhance the environment. So with this, we are able to, what I've said, when I proposed the proposal to the management, they were able to buy into the ideas that, okay, we go into green energy by installing a 545 kilowatt solar power system. So with this, we are able to eradicate fumes into the society. We go green on the energy. And the process of that, we're able to call in some contractors, which we have checked their background of what they have done before on a similar project. The processing was in place, and at the long run, one of the contractors was awarded the project, and we are effectively install a 545 kilowatt solar panel, which eradicate the use of generator in the facility. And with this, we are able to sustain the environment and eradicate any harmful flame that we are exhuming to the society that is impactful to human and even plants around that society. So with this implementation, the company was able to go green, save costs on energy, though the initial capital project was expenditure, but after 5 years, with the data that was put in place with the finance department, the company will be able to recover the money, and after 5 years, they will be running that facility on zero cost in generating the power for the facility. So with this switching from initial generator system into green energy, we are able to eradicate any harmful flame that we are be exploring into the environment. So with this, we are able to carry out the sustainability process for that facility, which is still in place till today.
Okay. Olabayo, thank you, and Babs, thank you too. To start with, I like the fact that, I mean, you know, sustainability is a topic that's probably maybe new to so many, especially immigrants, but it's not also very new. But I like the fact that you tell us something about sustainability, especially from facility management angle and from project management angle, which is quite commendable. You know, I didn't say define sustainability, but you saw it as something, you know, reasonable, you know, something that is very important to say first. so that clear any doubt in the mind of your listener that, oh, yeah, he knows what we're talking about. And the way two of you they explain it is very clear that you understand the application in both sides, you know, of the field. Yeah, yeah. But going forward, like in Canada, yeah, I think that's one area that is very important when we talk about facility management or building projects. You know, you need to have an idea of what are the innovative ideas that are coming into your system. So, which is part of our continuous learning, you know, efforts as project managers. Yeah, you know, there's also a possibility that you come to this kind of place, you don't even have any project you have handled like before that has to do with sustainability, or you did not take note of it. But that does not mean you cannot stay talk in the interview panel. You can talk. You can tell us something you know about sustainability. You can even be very clear that you have not really handled any projects, you know, but you have read so much about sustainability. So that's where the advantage of you having a continuous learning, you know, putting a continuous learning effort will come into play. So what I'm saying in essence is that whichever way, either you have a project that you can give example or you don't have, but going for interview, take note of these things. Sustainability is very important. We talk about conflict resolution at that time. So those are some of the things an employer will want you to talk about. What new things are you bringing in? What value are you adding? Because as you are answering your question, it will also showcase what values you have that you want to bring into the system. Okay. So thank you very much. You can do more.
Yeah, thanks, James. And I think the good important point you made here is that while you provided examples in both cases related to projects in Nigeria, also use the opportunity when you answer your questions to relate it to the fact that even in Nigeria, these are also very applicable in Canada. So one point would be that, yes, try to understand sustainability as it relates to the Canadian environment. The laws we have in Nigeria, the rules and procedures for companies to follow such in Nigeria is different from the one in Canada, even though they are similar, but Canada places more emphasis on them. So being able to say, although this is a project, you know, in Nigeria, but you've actually read through something. That's why James said, yeah, research. Mention something you've read as important to the company. For example, if you are talking with a company, they will have a sustainability policy. Read through it, understand what it means to them, you know, with regards to sustainability, and link your answer to how you'll feel, oh, okay, so this person has read about it and he knows how what he has done may be important for us too. It personalizes your responses to suit what they want to hear. I think that's why when you are doing, you know, an interview, they say research the company to understand them, so that when you're answering your questions, you relate it to what is important to them. So relate that sustainability to what's important to this company. You know, how would they benefit from my experience in this way? So that's very important, I think, to also add.
Okay, so this is Bayo. If I want to chime in there.
Oh, Bayo, can you also do a little introduction of yourself while you're at it?
Okay, my name is Bayo Abdul. I'm a project manager with about 22 years experience. In Nigeria, I have about 13 years of experience. I worked in the oil and gas in Nigeria. Here in Canada, I'm in the midstream section, the oil and gas, basically fabrication of oil and gas equipment. So yeah, I just want to point out that sustainability doesn't necessarily need to be a profitability thing, but it is a corporate responsibility on most projects. You just need to do it to make sure that it's part of the approval process on most of the projects. You have to ensure, so like from my own experience, when we're setting up facilities, we're gonna go to like a new area to start building those facilities. And part of the sustainability is to ensure what has been there before we started setting up the facility, we can take care of them. Here in Canada, you have to check, okay, what kind of or what kind of animals were there, birds and all that. We have to see how can we relocate those animals to a different location and still keep them live in while we build. And then as part of the project, there is going to be an evaluation of whatever output we're going to generate from the project. How is it going to impact those animals that we're relocating? So just to say that sustainability is a corporate responsibility. It's not necessarily a profitability thing. It doesn't add to profitability, but it's something that is required.
Okay, thank you, Bayo. So that's it. We can ask another set of 2 questions. So maybe we can give Bayo an opportunity to ask his question now. And then after this one, we will then have a final question so that we can start rounding up. So Bayo, ask your question.
Okay. So I would like to ask construction project management regards to communication and collaboration. So how do you facilitate effective communication and collaboration among various stakeholders, including clients, subcontractors, and suppliers? On most projects, there are different stakeholders. And then based on that, you're going to get subcontractors and clients. But we need to ensure we can manage all of those different parties to be able to have a successful project. So how do you manage all these stakeholders and communicate with them?
So Babs, you want to go first? You're on mute though. And you can take a minute to think about it before you answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. How to communicate effectively among all the stakeholders. The first thing is to identify the stakeholders, all the stakeholders involved on the projects. And the second thing is to note the type of communication you would have with each stakeholder. Now, there are stakeholders you just need to inform. There are stakeholders you need to, using the RACI chart, there are stakeholders that you just inform, and that's all. They just want to be carried along on the project. Once they don't make any decision, but if you don't inform them, they can create problem for you. There are stakeholders that are responsible for different things, and there are stakeholders that you need to be accountable to. So you need to identify each stakeholder and be able to communicate effectively with these stakeholders. Now, after establishing clear channels of communication, you set out the objectives and expectations. And like I said, the expectation is that there are people that you must carry along from beginning to the end. There are people that you just have to inform on the project. And then you promote openness and transparency. You just make sure that everything you are doing can be interpreted along the same line. You are not saying one thing to one person and saying another thing to the other person on the same project. So once you have all this, the next most important thing is you need to be able to listen to everything that they are saying on the project. Everything that all the stakeholders are saying, you need to be able to listen and communicate back to them like a feedback. One example I would give you is when we worked on a project, I'll go back to one of the first projects I mentioned, the water projects. We had issues with the local community. Now, basically, the owners of the project are not interested in how we resolve the issues. They just want us to deliver on the project because it is assumed that we know how to manage this project and managing the people. So what we did was we hired somebody from the local and put him on salary. He wasn't doing anything, but we had to pay him so he can be the go-to person with the community, because they were always disrupting activities. So this method of communicating with the community helped us so much that we were able to reach out to the community with less disruption on that project. So once you identify all the stakeholders and you know who to discuss with, you know who to hold responsible for certain things, you know who to be accountable to, and all those, and you're open on the project, you would be able to communicate effectively on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Okay.
does Olabayo also want to respond before?
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. When we are talking about communication and collaboration in project management or facility management, number one, we must first identify the means of communication that is more suitable and comfortable for your stakeholder. Every stakeholder is unique and they want to be communicate in a different ways. For example, somebody that is on the site, you are not expecting that person to be responding to your email every moment. So with this person on the site, you can be able, maybe it's a phone call communication ways that you put across to that person to pass across your information, whereas somebody in the office settings might have time to go through emails and what have you. So one, understand and identify and understand and have an agreement with every stakeholder in a way which is more suitable for them in terms of communication. Once you have this agreement, you will be able to secure that, okay, when I'm talking to the people on the field, it's a matter of phone calls, and also so get a feedback from them to be able to ensure that they get the message you are passing across, because sometimes communication is a two-way thing. If you send across a message and the person is not, sorry? If you send across an information to someone, you are not getting a response, there is a tendency the person did not get the information. So by the time you send an information and you are requesting for a feedback, that shows that the two-way communication line is in place. So like I've said earlier, understand the way and type of communication that is suitable for every stakeholder, and ensure that you have an agreement with that. Might be if it's on a project, it might be a written agreement. Okay, contractor A wants to be communicated in so way. Contractor B prefer phone call means of communication. And when we are talking of in terms of collaboration, it's a matter of process of bringing different stakeholders together to work on the same goal, to deliver on a project. And that is why a facility or project management comes in. You as a project manager, you have people working on electrical aspect, people working on mechanical. You have to juggle between the two sides to ensure that, okay, when the electricals are working, they are supposed to deliver so and Y number of metrics per day. Ensure that that is done to be able to allow the other stakeholder to be able to come in and carry out their own part. So as a facility or project manager, you say your communication skill and collaboration skill must be top notch, and you must agree with the other party you are working with. Okay, this is what a manner of way we want to be communicated, and ensure that in your collaboration aspect that every stakeholder comes to an agreement that we are doing this is our own part, we deliver this by so time, and ensure it's still within the project time schedule. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bayo and Babs. Okay. So, hearing both of you, a couple of things. Babs, you tried to give some example. Olabayo, you didn't give an example. I guess it would be easier if you use an example to just explain it. Something like, okay, in one of your projects, there are many stakeholders, and then you try and use that to explain what you've done. Because at the end of the day, the interview is just to see whether you have the experience of doing what you're talking about. So So I think that's key. Whatever the question is, we need to try and first see how we can use an example to explain what we're trying to talk about. So at the end of the whole discussion, I identify the key point there to identify stakeholders, which is very important. And then there's a need to plan the communication. Basically, Babs, you mentioned the RACI. So that is the planning. Once you identify all your stakeholders at the beginning of the project, you need to plan how you're going to communicate with them. So that's where you start talking about, okay, there will be some people that you have to communicate by email. You don't expect them to respond back and all those. That goes into your RACI. And once you have that set up on your project, then depending on how much the interfaces you have, sometimes you might need to have like an interface meeting where you discuss the plan and make sure there is alignment. I saw that Olabayo mentioned the agreement with stakeholders. So that's also important. You have to have that agreement with them so that everybody on the same page, this is the communication, this is the expectation. So, and then based on that,
You are muted.
Why you're muted?
just to see, okay.
Yeah, we
is
lost you.
everything good?
We lost you a couple of seconds.
Okay. Yeah, so I said after you have the planning, then you need to have alignment with most of the stakeholders, particularly the key ones. And then just to run through the plan you have, this is how we want to communicate with you if they have any concern, so that at the end of that exercise, everybody will agree on how communication is going to be on the project. And based on that, you can start the execution of that strategy. And then after a couple of months, you can go back there and review and just check, okay, is anything working? If it's not working, what else can we do? And then you're just going to be an iterative process until you are good, the client is good, all the vendors good, and that's what it is.
Awesome, and thanks Barry for mentioning that. I was waiting for Olabayo to mention an example. I mean, the time you took to actually explain that, the example will have done the job perfectly for you, right? So Ibrahim wants to step out, but I wanted to make the next feedback, before he steps out. So Ibrahim, go for it, and then after that we'll take James. You're muted, Ibrahim.
Right. So I was saying that Adebayo was able to, hit the nail on the head with regards to their responses, provide the examples, then have a flow of what you are going to do. I know you guys gave a lot of examples, but try and have a structured approach. And if you look at it, this question was like 2-in-1, the stakeholders and its communication. And if you're senior project manager, you should know how to manage and handle those two. They are not the same thing. They are different. Stakeholder is understanding who the stakeholders are. And I think the example that I think it was Babs gave with regards to the water project, it's a good example. And you discuss understanding the stakeholder, and in this case, you have to deal with a local community, and you're able to identify what to do. That's good. And communication, how you're doing communication. I think you try to describe, you notice how communication, etc., which is fine. But I think being able to refine it in a better answer, in a structured answer will help a lot. Then for Adebayo, yes, being able to provide that example is important. So you understand the concept and what's needed, but giving an example is what justifies that what you have the authority or the ability, the competence to manage the situation. That's what I'll say. But then I've seen that there's a question from was it? Yeah, Onimisi. I hope that's the correct pronunciation. Onimisi. Good question, and I think I've experienced this myself. And the advice I was given when I came to I think the first advice one of my friends, a Nigerian friend, to me when I came was, they'll ask you this question regarding salary. Don't be the one to throw out your expectation. That's the usual advice that people say. don't ever be the one to throw out the numbers. Yes, we can check Indeed or Glassdoor to see what the company usually pays. But if you don't get that information, what do? The model answer I was giving was that you understand my skills and experience, and that the company already has a salary expectation and profile for the different responsibilities and job profession, that you understand that the company already has this, that you will get if they can give you the range that they're working with, and you'll see if it's something that could work out. That I now trade again that yes, you've seen the company and you like the company organization and you like to work in the organization, that money is not just the only driver, that you're also looking at the corporate culture and other things. So that shows back at them to say, okay, let them be the one to bring something to you. And once they've called you for interview, they know what you could bring into the organization. So they actually are considering you among maybe 2 or 3 other people. So, and they know what they're going to pay, and they won't pay higher than they want to pay typically, except they want to justify, and except they really know that, yes, we will pay more. And for me, I was going for a general project coordinator role, but these questions came. By the time I did that interview, they said, no, we have to pay this guy more than, he's not a general project coordinator, he's a project manager. And they got me to interview for a project manager role, which I got. So my expectation was much more lower than what they were even going to pay me. So if I had started telling them my expectations, I won't even do, so this person is even thinking lower than what we could even get him to do and all of that. So the advice is straight back on them and tell them that they've seen your experience or they've read your resume, they know what your profile is, but they also have their own salary scale. So they can, you can work within it, but they can let you know what their ranges are and all that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. With that said, Ibrahim will be stepping out because he has a family engagement. However, we have Adebayo Abdul here, James with us. So I've put it in his LinkedIn. One of the goals of these sessions is also for networking purposes. So try to connect with every one of them. I will put their links here in the chat box. So James, I would like to have your own feedback. Thanks, Ibrahim, for the opportunity
thank you,
to
everyone.
connect.
Ibrahim,
Yeah, I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
we'll reach out to you.
All right, no problem. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Okay, good one. For Babs and Olabayo, responding to that question about stakeholder management, communication, and collaboration. One thing you also have to take note of is that stakeholder management and communication management, there's a thin line between them when it comes to stakeholders. You can't successfully have one. I mean, have a stakeholder management. You cannot successfully do that without considering communication. Okay, but the area I want to point out is that when Babs tell us about identifying stakeholders, which is very true, that's the first thing to do. Okay, and I remember that when Olabayo was stepping in, maybe he didn't want to like mirror what Babs said, and then he now said one most important thing to do is communication. In that way, you have to be very, tactical and careful about your responses, because sometimes if you are not careful, it will negate the norm. Okay, communication is not the first thing. When you talk about stakeholder management, you have to first identify the stakeholder. Okay, and in the course of doing that, because when you now know the stakeholder, then maybe your communication management plan you have already, you now begin to review it and see which one agrees with the stakeholders based on their formation, who they are, what they want, So, but it's important you identify who your stakeholder is. Then the communication, your communication plan can come into play, applying it, to different stakeholders based on what you have gotten from identifying them. Okay, so there's a thin line between stakeholder management and the communication management. And I also want to say that, we have 10 knowledge areas. Like I said earlier, you may not find all those things in your companies or in the places where you are working. So it's good to first know what the company you are going to. Part of your knowing KYA, knowing your company, KYC is to, identify what kind of things they have. If you have an insider there that can give you, a prior information, that would be good as well. They may have a policy already or a statement, of what they do or a process they follow. You need to also talk in that line, if you're answering some of these questions. So it's such a very brilliant one. I appreciate that your responses, both of you, you have a very good idea of stakeholder management and how to collaborate and communicate with them. But we cannot overemphasize the importance of citing good example. Okay, yeah.
Okay, great. So I think James, you'll still be the one to ask the next questions, and then that will be our final questions. So after this, we will ask questions from the candidates themselves if they have questions for you guys. So James, your questions, please.
Okay. I'm just trying to look at the question that probably will unify both parties, facility management and so I have one here. Basically you have to do thorough project documentation. So I just wanted to share your experience about project documentation because that's very key. If you have to manage a project very well, there's an aspect that you need to look into historical background, historical records of a likely project that have been done before, or of a likely facilities that have been handled before. So that onus is also on you as a project manager to keep, a repository of, project documentation for your projects. So I know somehow maybe we dropped the ball, but it's important. Employer will want to know how much passion you have about project documentation. So I'll put the question like this. What role does documentation play in your construction project management process? How do you maintain accurate and up-to-date records? Yeah, anybody can. Maybe Bash will always want to take.
Okay.
Or is it Olaba, you want to take first shot now?
We are both Olabayo.
Let Olabaya, maybe Olabaya can take a shot first.
Okay.
So let's reverse it here.
Yeah, project documentation in construction and in facility is a very key aspect in the project or in the facility management profession. We are talking about the project documentation. This is a document that shows and be able to document what we have been doing. And when we are talking about facility or project management, they are into stages. Time, maybe. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So maybe we have like 5 stages to complete in a project. By the end of every project, you must be able to have a documentation to be able to check if all the merit has been met, all the goals has been achieved on a project. For example, there is a facility that one is managing and it's a typical type of facility also in another location where the facility manager is a facility we are trying to set up, and there is a similar facility running in another society, in another environment. So I was able to reach out to the facility management manager in that facility to be able to get some expertise on how they were able to run that facility seamlessly without having or minimize the breakdown time of that facility. What are the things they put in place in order to manage facilities, such as the planned PPM schedule of that facility, because they are similar, we're able to imbibe that culture also for that facility. You are able to get their PPM schedule. Who are the contractors that they use in managing that facility? Because the facility has different stakeholders to be able to manage, such as the HVAC, the electrical aspect of the facility. So the facility manager was able to release the information from their documentation they has made for that particular facility. And I was able to cultivate this aspect also and put the documents together and added my own documentation for that facility for future purposes and references for upcoming project or upcoming facility manager. They can be able to reference to it that, okay, this is a documentation for a particular project of 20-story building. So anybody that is trying to embark on that kind of facility management can be able to reference to that documentation and be able to begin their own facility manager aspect from it. So facility management is documentation in facility or in project is very key, because these are where you are able to put your pros and cons on that facility together to be able to examine at the end of the facility, maybe at the end of the project that you are carrying out, okay, what have we done right? What are the lessons learned? What are the reflections that we should have done? What are the things we should have done better on this project we didn't do? So this will serve as a reflection for that facility. That documentation will be able to, after that project, that will now be able to give us a more insight when we are embarking on such a project. We won't be able to make some of the mistakes made while carrying out the first one. So these are what I understand about documentation in facility or project management.
Perhaps.
Thank you very much for that question. Generally speaking, project documentation, when we talk about project documentation, we are talking about collection of all the documents and records that would capture the project lifecycle, key aspect of the project lifecycle. And one of the most important things that happens with project documentation is it helps with lessons learned, so that when there is a need to repeat such project or similar projects, you can go back on these documentations and on this document and be able to use it for future purpose. The project documentation comes in different formats. You have the project charter, you have the project management plan, you have the communications plan, the risk register. There are a whole lot of these documents that are very key to delivering a successful project. One example I would give is I had the privilege of working in document control. And if there is so much documentation when you work with multinationals, and there are various softwares that we have used in managing projects successfully. One of the softwares is Microsoft Project, which I'm also able to use to work on projects. And depending on who you are relating with at a particular time, there are different documents, or there are different resources that you can use to capture these documentations, to distribute this documentation to the stakeholders, and also to archive it for future purposes. So documentation is key to present projects and future projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Babs. I think that was a good attempt from both of you, talking about project documentation. Yeah, Babs mentioned project charter, project management plan, very good. Olabayo also, give a typical example, where he has used dwell on project documentation to enhance his own project. And both of you mentioned lesson learned. That's very, very good too. And these are some of the things that when you do a proper project documentation, and it will enable you opportunity to have a report of what your project is all about. And that will be a very useful tool or a reference point for another project manager of another project. Okay, but project documentation, it starts right from the beginning of the project till the closing of the project. Okay, so, and then that question was also asking, how do you maintain accurate and up-to-date records? Maybe you guys didn't say so much about that. Yeah, when in the course of keeping project or documenting your activities, you're not going to do it alone. Your team members will do. You have to carry out testing, especially when it comes to quality control, quality assurance. There are a lot of templates that you fill. Before you fill them, they are not documents, they are templates. But once you fill them, they go to the repository, where you keep them as documents. They are part of project documents. Anything can happen. There could be litigation. There will be need for audits. These are some, especially for quality control and quality assurance. Documentation is very important. You mentioned that for lesson learned, yes, but also for quality control, for quality assurance, which can create a lot of friction on project site. Your payment may be delayed because you don't have documentation. You know, I managed a project recently. The contractor we were dealing with an environmental management team, the environmental branch of my department. So they're asking that, oh, this contractor should have finished work by March 31st, because March 31st is the last date you can work inside water in Canada. You must have an understanding of that too as project manager. There are time, you know, one beautiful thing about this environment, especially in construction, there are some projects you can't do during summer. For instance, if you are building bridges, you can't do piling in summer. You know, if it has to happen, I'm not really sure, but you have to really deal with DFO, Department of Fishery and Oceanic Department, you know, of Canada. So there are projects you cannot do that. So when you are running a project, apart from you meeting your timeline, the environmental people are going to be on your neck. So this guy said, oh, I finished this work. And he said, no, you have not finished. But if he has to do the work, it will encroach into that window of no working in summer, no working in water. So why? Because he didn't have documentation. If he had documentation that shows that, oh, he has done this, he has done that, that would be a quick proof for the clients to say, okay, yeah. And so the importance of documentation in quality control is also very, very important. That being said, there are so many other things, but I'm sure time will not permit us. Yeah, so but we, like Abby said, we can connect with one another. I want to also believe that at this stage that we are doing mock interview, you have settled the issue of your resume, because that's another major issue. You know, maybe it will be relevant to say how many invitations have you been receiving. It will give you a measure of whether your resume was well structured.
So James, let's take Abdul's response first, and then we will come back, especially if they have questions that they would like you guys to answer. So Bayo and Olbayo and Babs, let's have your questions after Adebayo's response to your answers. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Biodun. So the way I saw, I'm just looking at the question again, and my own approach would be, this question is in two parts, and our response need to cover both at the end of the whole exercise. And then when we wrap it up, we have to try and make it present to the audience or the interviewer that we've done this in the past and we can do it again, and how this is going to help us to get this job. So the first part was, what role does documentation play in your construction project management process? Yeah, I believe everybody mentioned is a key role. We need to provide an example like that. Oh, maybe on the previous project, I think James mentioned something like that, okay, a project was meant to be completed, but because of the timeline, the window line, if you don't do this at a particular time. So we need to tie that to the response. To say, okay, yeah, on a particular project, we assume everything was completed, and we realized that quality documentation that was supposed to be submitted at a certain time were not submitted, which means that, we need to tie it at the end. We can talk about project documentation, but the key questions still need to be answered. I like that lessons learned was mentioned. That's one of the key importance of documentation. At the beginning, you need to do your lessons learned database. And for any question on project documentation, mentioning lessons learned means, okay, these guys really understand the importance. So we also need to try and ensure we're using the appropriate management terms based on the question, just so that the interviewer knows, okay, yeah, we know what we're talking about. And then, so I think for me, just to be able to wrap it up properly and to tie it to whatever the question is asking for, that's key to our response.
Thanks so much, Mario. So I wanted to ask you guys if you have questions. We do have a question in the question and answer box, but I think I already responded to that. But Olabayo and Babs, do you guys have questions?
Okay, yeah, thank you. My question is, I know very well that most of Canadian employers really value their education and certification very much. As somebody that is just coming in, like myself, I have my master's in facility management already. What are the certification courses that one can quickly lay down on that can be able to enhance one's chances of getting jobs or getting called for interview? So what are the people that are in the industry? What are the quick certification, not that quick in particular, what are certification one can do to be able to enhance one's CV or one's resume to say, okay, yeah, this guy has experience back home. He has a little bit of our educational culture or experience there also that can be able to complement one's search for job. Thank you.
James, you want to respond?
Like if you talk about facility management, you know, we briefly mentioned about sustainability the other time. There's what we call lead green associates. I think that will be very helpful to you, you know, as a facility manager, you know, and we have what we call IAM too, Asset Management Institutes. You know, if you Google this, you will see all the relevant certifications that will help you in managing facilities and assets. For lead green associates, you can write it down. We have Canadian Green Building group or something like that. You will see the details. You will see CAGBC. They are a Canadian body. They are in charge of regulatory body that will manage green buildings. You know, what are the requirements? What are the processes? And how do you go about it? What are the certifications you need? This will be a plus for you. Yeah, if you have this certification. I also mentioned IAM, Asset Management Institute. Yeah, that could also be very helpful. But let us not forget that these are also they are cost inclined. So even though it's not like you have it and you get job, it's also more of how you push yourself. You can even read more about all those things if you are not yet able to get certification, like something I did. You know, so that if they ask you any question, you say, that certification you are is in view. You are in process of getting it. But all that you will said in the interview will show that interviewer that, boy, he knows what he needs. You know, even he has not gotten it, he's working. So you have to manage that with your status too now, because if I say you go and be getting your certification, money is money. So that the one you can lay your hands on, go ahead and get them, you know. And some of the jobs, the certification will open a faster door for you. Then some of them, they don't really require that certification for you to enter. But if you have the opportunity to get them, because what they need, they will state everything there in the job description. So if you have it already, it's a plus for you. So in the meantime, while you are looking for opportunities, you can lay hands on some of those certifications. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, James. In addition to that, in the project management world, so PNG or professional engineering is like the key. But most times you won't be able to do that to completion until you come in. So, but you can start whatever you can start from outside of Canada. There will be a lot of assessment, all the documentation required. You start getting that from Nigeria before you get in, so that when you get in, it will be easy for you. I didn't do that, and sometimes when I look back, I'm like, okay, that should have been the route. I had PMP before I came in. Some company do look at it, but I don't think it's not a big deal per se. It's more of what you can say you can do and how you can show what you can do.
Okay.
That's really more important than the certification. That's from my experience.
I will just add to that. So I think there is a group called BOMA Manitoba. I'm just checking it now. They are into facility management certification. So I'm going to put their link here. They are also available nationally. So especially for Olabayo. So if it's something you want to approach them, they probably will have, they cover some of these things. And the other one that I probably, has not been mentioned before is project management, what they call it now, Microsoft project. All right. So if you also have ability to use those tools and you can take the training, especially for those who are in cost management, there are also some tools that are unique to the construction industry here in Canada. I don't know what they call those software again. There's one they use for costing. And the other places where you might want to get information regarding to training is also the construction association groups. So, for example, in Manitoba, we have construction association groups, in fact, everywhere. So you want to get those type of reach out to those type of association. You might actually be able to also meet hiring managers through those type of engagement. It will cost you some money, like James said, but this is also an opportunity to connect with the keys, the stakeholders in the industry, because then you will have an ability to actually build rapport, with them as a colleague rather than you reaching out as a job seeker. There's a way people look at you when you're a job seeker, then when you're actually, on the same level as somebody who is, also building themselves professionally as those guys who are currently working in the industry. So I would definitely encourage to do that for sure. So that's it. Having said that, I want to appreciate you guys for joining us. If you are being listening in. We meet here every Saturday. Next Saturday, we'll be talking about supply chain. So if that is your cup of tea, like it's mine, you can look out for our invitation. And I'll also send the recording of this session to everybody, especially the candidates, so that you can have an opportunity to really see what you have done, how you have performed, and see where you need to improve based on what all these guys have said here today. It's a journey, so you really need to see it that way, that it's a journey. Every one of us, we are all on a journey. All right. So take some time to reflect, to see what you need to improve upon, and don't there's one thing I always like to tell people, that if you are on a journey of this nature where you have taken up this challenge, you realize that at the beginning of that journey, you are going to succeed. But then when you start that journey, you will see that events are happening on that journey that are now looking as if it's molding you, either positively or negatively. But you have that power to determine how it molds you, right? It needs to mold you positively for you to really reach that goal that you set at the beginning. But if it is the other way, right? Then it's taking you away from your goal. So you have that power, and this is the control that you have to learn, from whatever those events are. This is one of those events, this is one of those positive events that will happen to you on this journey. So I want you to really take your time to go over all the things that has been said today. Amongst between these three guys that joined us today, we're talking about 60 years of experience, right? So it's a lot that they've tried to pour into you guys today. And our hope on this platform is that you also will come someday later to also mentor others who are just starting out their journey. This is I know James can relate to that. Also, Bio can relate to that. Starting out on the journey here with us, and here they are also helping, and you will also come back. So use that as a purpose for what you are going through right now, that the purpose you are going through right now is so that you will have a success story that you are going to share with those who are just starting out sometime soon. Use that as your driving force, to get you to your desired, job and profession here in Canada. Having said that, thanks, James, thanks, Bio, and something kind of I thought about something. I'm going to send you guys a certificate for mentoring that you can use for your professional development as well. And I will send that in your inbox, hopefully in the course of the week. Thanks so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. I think about 20 folks joined us today, aside from, you guys who are on the panelist group, and we really appreciate it. Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend. It's sunny out there in Winnipeg. I don't know about you guys. I don't really care. Okay, but I hope it's sunny out there also. Take some time with family to go out. Have a great weekend. Bye for now. I'll connect with you soon. And see you next week if you would like to join us on the supply chain certificates info session. And bye for now.
All right, bye everybody.
So
Bye.
I will leave the session open for some time. So if you want to connect with the guys, I shared their links earlier. It's an opportunity to reach out. Don't just request to connect. Actually, set up a Zoom or have a chat. You connect if they are in person within your city. Take that opportunity to build your connection. That's what I would advise. And for those who are still here, don't hesitate to support us on the YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube. That is also where I'm going to post the recording of this session as well. Bye for now. Thanks, James. Thanks for saying through. I know you say you were going to help out soon. Yeah, and good enough we finish on time, right?
I was
Okay
enjoying
then.
it.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
Okay
bye.
then.
Yeah.
Bye for now.